a session on government universities making a mark globally has been shifted to the Aspire Hall. And we will now be starting with the session in school track here, the capacity building of educators. Teachers are the backbone of educational institutions. With a changing paradigm of education, teachers have to be empowered with knowledge, resources, and support so that they do their jobs of shaping students' future well. This session highlights the 3 Ts, teachers, training, and technology, and deal with various new and innovative methods to enhance the teachers' capabilities. The teachers' capacity building programs for developing teaching skills and techniques focused on enhancing skills and knowledge of teachers on using ICT as a tool. The various CAI computer-assisted instructions for improving teaching and learning strategies. I would now introduce the session chair, Professor Parveen Sinclair, Director, National Council for Education Research and Training. Professor Parveen Sinclair is a professor of mathematics. She has been closely associated in the field of education, especially mathematics education and distance learning education for over 2 decades. At the Indira Gandhi National Open University, Professor Sinclair also developed, with the help of individuals working in the field, a certificate program in teaching of primary school mathematics, a first of its kind in the world. Apart from being a mathematician and educationalist, Professor Sinclair also chairs the Aruna Sinclair Foundation, which sponsors vocational training of mentally challenged female adults. I would now pass off the mic to Professor Sinclair to take over the session. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. And I'm sure the session has been shifted to something called an Allure Hall, which probably has some significance for teachers and teacher educators. And of course, as they were saying, the higher education has gone to Aspire Hall. My way of looking at teacher and teacher education is that it is part of higher education and higher learning. And we really need these areas to converge when it comes to, it's a major point of convergence. And we should see that collectively in India. Today, we have several panelists with us, all of whom have been working in the area. If I may, I'll start with the way I have the papers. Lakshmi Kumar will start off first. Each speaker would, of course, be presenting their view of capacity building, pre-service and in-service. Since this is a technology enabling expo and conference, I suppose we will be also talking about where that comes in and how we can use it ably. We will be talking for a maximum of 7 to 8 minutes per person, please. I have a little chit here saying 1 minute, which shall be 1 minute left, which shall be passed on when it is 1 minute left. I suppose I won't always have to use it. After that, we will have a session of questions and answers after everybody has done their presentation. And when we come to the question answers, I shall talk a little bit about the question answers. But let me first start with Lakshmi. She's the director of the Orchid School and process-centric. The school is process-centric, vision-oriented. And she is the CEO. That says quite a bit about her vision. The school believes it is international and cross-cultural, and it focuses on this. She specializes in training for culture worker teachers, social workers, doctors, nurses, lawyers, and business professionals, keeping cross-culturing as its background. She trains teachers, trains communities, parents to help children with special needs, disabilities, I assume, integrated into the mainstream education system. As we know, RTE is asking everybody to try and do this. And this is particularly relevant till grade 8. Later, we find that people have already kind of found their feet to whatever extent. Support is always needed, but it's the first few years that are really crucial in this. She has also introduced school-based counseling services in 1984 in Pune, which has become a model for others. Lakshmi, your time starts now.
Oh my God. You know, this was the worst nightmare. Last 2 days I've been witnessing that speakers are sliced in their time. Okay, now my time cannot start until that starts. Am I allowed to go there, or should I sit here and... I'll go there. Okay, fine. So my time... Wait.
I think this is how teachers feel. Your time starts now, and in 7 minutes you have to graduate your students. Okay, so we all recognize this Duranto Express feeling. You know, this is post-lunch. It's not very appetizing, especially for after a great meal. But just to give you a symbolic representation that this is how we begin our career, with one B.Ed course. God knows what quality plantain that we have been served. And this is what a system demands. You know, that you have to add so much to the plate that I even say symbolically that our banana leaf is even stretched. That you need to have the cognitive element, social element, and psychological, the intellectual quotient, the affective domain, and then suddenly there are new acts like Child Sexual Abuse Act, and then you have to have the RTE and the new curriculum, and so every day our plate is getting filled up. So, you know, the capacity building has become almost like a full-time demand on school systems. Just to highlight, in any school, any successful school, the third factor is, I think, a very, very key important, not to say the others are mutually exclusive, the professional capacity of school staff. I'm also being a little emphatic on the word school staff because school is a whole system, and while we, of course, put a lot of effort for our teacher building capacity, I think that we need to see that there are many other crucial members in the system that we need to also train. Most important are the 4 Ps, and again I'm highlighting the people component because schools are extremely HR intense, people intense industry. And I'm glad you made this observation, ma'am, that, you know, suddenly higher education is there and school education is here. And this whole dichotomy of, you know, school education itself is not considered, teacher education itself is not even considered in the arena of higher education is very, very telling. Just to give you, you know, I think when we talk about taking a path, we need to take stock of what the changes have been. I've just kind of highlighted it to say that our school systems have become very, very complex. You know, you have lots of regimentations, documentations, you have validations and evidences, and the system itself has become much more complex, hence the operation systems have changed. And we know now that good showplace campuses are not good social or school institutions anymore. You may have dramatic infrastructure and it could get you admissions, but you will not sustain those children in your campus unless you do something that's extraordinary. The typical standard classroom model of broadcasting lectures or solitary homework in the evening, it seems to make no sense, no real sense in the digital age. I call customers because I'm also looking at it from the point of view of a corporate. I know that some of us have a discomfort with the word, but I'm looking at also school as a service industry, and hence I'm coming from that point of view. Their expectations have skyrocketed, and customers also keep us on our feet in terms of our quality services. So they have a large list of expectations. Some are even beyond the beyond the jurisdiction of a school system itself. And there is a huge competitive market, so parents have a choice to make in terms of the schools. And they may not always make the right choice for their child, but the fact is that, you have varied, choices to make from, and some suits your pocket, some in terms of what's popular, some have gone by the, like this earlier session we had, what the hoarding says. Or some even go by, this is where my family traditionally graduated from. So you have lots of reasons for which you take. Another very, very important factor is the labor mobility. Today in classrooms, kids join in class 1. It's probably less than 30% actually graduate from the same level, especially in the metropolitan cities like Pune, where I come from. Parents move jobs middle of the year. And of course, we lose teachers and we lose the children, of course, to be filled up only by the new ones. But the demography and the profile of the classrooms keep changing every year. And though you may have one child coming from one CBSE school to another, we know that schools are not just about board and curriculum. Schools are about the organization culture. So there is a labor mobility issue. And of course, because of which we often lose the teachers, especially if they're female teachers. They're called the trailing spouse. So we do face attrition rate high, not because we are a terrible place to work with, because they probably have to move on with their families. Continuing with that, I think the most important is the change in the learner profile, that we have students with huge engagement issue. I was in the higher education track before lunch, and the secretary of AICTE talked about the comparative study between the American and Indian students, where he says the issue of engagement is very, very low. It's getting lower in the higher education. And we do have thrown up challenges in our classrooms with varied learning styles and preferences, IQ, which is a very, very controversial concept itself, but we do have children with varied learning abilities and emotional state. And today we have all children go through some kind of an emotional upheaval in their growing years. So there is no normal or abnormal child. Children have problem faces. So we are talking about children with emotional states and coming from very different social environment. We're talking about the RTE, which is giving another perspective of children coming from different class background and different social background. And we have children who are extremely techno-savvy, much more than, let's say, the adults that they are facing. And another scene is that the curricula and tests are getting more and more standardized on one level, and 1 minute, okay. And of course, the role of teacher is shifting from the content. Is it really 1 minute? Okay. Oh my God. Normally 1 minute is 1 minute. Okay. Yeah, I just want to leave you with 3 gaps I think somebody can fill up, because I think we're all on the same page. For some reason, schools are not talking about the skill building of teachers at the school education. Every higher education scenario that I'm sitting in, they're all talking about the expectations and the non-employability. But school education, we seem to be quite satisfied with the wealth of teachers available, and we move on. The second gap is the build-up of teaching as professionals. While we do talk about us as professionals, but look at the investment made in that. Today morning we saw 3.1% in the education sector of the entire higher education. And of course, in most schools, you will see the training development budget itself is very, very low. And the third is the whole compartmentalization of schooling systems, that you have, the pre-primary separate, primary separate, and secondary separate. Higher education is completely separate. So we don't look at our learners going through a continuum, and hence every time the teacher is reinventing the wheel.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Lakshmi.
Sorry, it is a completely incomplete journey, but yeah, I
When
accept it.
when is a journey complete for us?
No, I know. Yeah, thank you.
I'd just like to remind us that this issue of professionalism, it's so crucial for us. However, a teacher education scheme has been launched recently by the government at the SSA level, trying to develop or again bring back to life several institutes that were started in the wake of the National Policy for Education, the DIETs, and now BITES are also being started with a vengeance. Again, it's up to us to carry things forward, because in India, I think we are pretty much notorious for starting things with the best of will, but continuing, maintaining is where we get killed each time. I shall now call on Dr. Dinesh Kumar, my colleague at NCERT, presently at the Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan. He is Professor of Life Sciences, Zoology in particular now, and he is doing wonders at the cave zoology, which we were just discussing a few days ago, but he's a professor of zoology. He's also a life member, of course, of the Indian Science Congress Association and the Society of Human Genetics. Dinesh, your time starts now.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much, Madam, for the nice words, and I really thank the organizers of World Education Summit of giving me an opportunity of sharing my views related to especially the capacity building of teachers. So, may I have the presentation, please? Or if it is not there, should I come there? When we talk of I will basically concentrate on the aspect of the present scenario and what kind of perspective we are thinking of, especially in terms of teachers' education. The remote is not working.
You're losing time.
It's all right, I'll manage.
We are talking of teachers' education, especially in terms of capacity building of teacher. One of the most important things which I have tried to identify, that is the availability of teacher. Almost if you look at the scenario from Kashmir to Kanyakumari or Kutch to Kohima, the story is same, and the reports are there that we are running short of, even we require nearly 1.2 million of teachers, and that shortfall is already there. So if I look at the problem, why such a scenario is there in our country, so one of the most important thing which I have considered, that perhaps teaching is the least preferred career choice and option. In anyone's career, you go to any class, you talk what you want to become, nobody will tell you that I want to be a teacher. This is a real scenario which is there everywhere in our country. And even the entire schooling system, be it private, be it government, we are always trying to assess a school system from the point of view of how many children are going into the professional career. So the least preferred career option is one of the most important concern as far as the teacher education is there. Then the other one is the insufficient teacher training institution, and as well as the lack of sufficient number of qualified teacher educators. These are the two concerns which are extremely important. So quickly I will just pause. I wanted to talk something more about that, but I want that all of my points are somehow sensitized here. That is why I am quickly passing through it. So when we are looking at the whole school scenario, then the entire school system is in a phase of transformation. Just now Mrs. Kumar was talking about that we start with one B.Ed course and now a whole lot of activities which are there on the banana leaf. That is really the concern, that now we are having many new paradigms. ICT intervention is there, continuous comprehensive evaluation is there, issues of value is there, gender sensitization is there. Many societal issues are also coming which we need to address at the school education system. And the irony is most of our teachers are not aware about, or they are very poorly aware about all such interventions which are coming in school education. That is one of the most important area which I feel need to be appropriately addressed. And especially when we are talking of capacity building of teacher, it is very important that all teachers must be appropriately sensitized and their capacity has to be built in all these areas. But unfortunately, things are not moving that fast as it is required in our country, because there is a huge gap of supply and demand, whether it is in terms of quality, number of teacher and teacher educator, as well as the quality of teacher and teacher educators. When we compare the school education with other professional careers, we find that there is a definite channel, be it an engineering trade, be it a management trade, even the legal professions are now getting channelized. But in our country, perhaps there is no system or there is no proper channel as far as entry of students in teaching as a profession is concerned. There is no definite channel. It is all left to, initially I have said that it's a least preferred option. Those who are left out, perhaps, from the different kind of professional courses, they are entering into higher education, and most of them are also having some other choice. Unless until that is fulfilled, they are entering into teacher education or the teaching as a profession. And one more important point, which is very, it's a matter of concern, that when we look at the entire pre-service teacher education program in our country, it is highly variable, both in terms of content. I'm not talking of some of the centers of excellence. They are, of course, producing very good quality teacher educators and teachers. But at the same time, when you look at the entire country and the curriculum and the content of, as well as the duration, it is highly diverse. There is no uniformity, though NCERT, as Madam has rightly said, that some kind of reforms are coming. But a lot of work has to be done in this area also, so that at least there has to be some standardization in the area of pre-service as well as in-service teacher education. This is a concern which always it is discussed when people are discussing at CABE also, and at many other fora, that recruitment of teacher quality is always a big issue, number is always there. But at the same time, in almost all the state who is facing the problem of teacher, it is prone to controversies. And as far as the, in recently also, but thankfully the RT deadline was not increased. But many a time there is a demand that some of the qualifications of teacher and teacher educator must be somehow compromised. Recently there was a debate that the teachers' eligibility test criteria should also be waived for some of the states. But till now it has not been considered. But these are the concerns which really affects the quality of teaching in school. So that is why we need to address this aspect in a very proper way, so that, just a minute, so that at least quality in school should not suffer. Then there are many other issues in teacher education program, and of course these are about the sensitization to the existing lot. And one most important thing which I want to point out, we are talking of a lot of reforms in the school education system, but our teacher education program is responding to that after something has already taken place in the whole school education system program. It is neither simultaneous nor before. In my opinion, whatever, when we are thinking of any change, any modification, any metamorphosis in the entire school education system, we need to first sensitize our teachers, and then only we should think of doing any kind of change in the schooling system. There are a whole lot of issues, whether it is capacity building in ICT, because this is a digital e-learning platform and we are discussing of that. And we are aware that if we forget some of the big cities, the scenario is quite dismal in most of the smaller cities, forget villages. Similarly, handling many issues, whether it is a skill development or gender sensitization, child right, all issues are there which need to be appropriately addressed. As Mrs. Kumar has also rightly said that one B.Ed course is perhaps not sufficient to cater all such requirements. Quickly, I will just focus on the vocationalization.
Yes.
We know that.
Can we leave this? Leave it there. I think we need to close.
Thank you.
There's one thing about the quality issues of the school. In fact, when Lakshmi was presenting, this came to mind. Again, if people haven't read about this or heard about this, there is an educational tribunal bill for higher education place, but also for school education. That is now, we have fine-tuned it and it's nearly through, I think. Some states already follow some such thing, and they keep a track of what's going on among their schools. But this bill will be coming through for the private sector largely. Government sector, of course, is regulated by the states concerned. We move now to Gauri Ishwaran. She is the CEO of the Global Educational Leadership Foundation, recipient of the Padma Shri Award in 2004, an educationist with over 30 years of experience in leading schools. She has brought a paradigm shift on how education needs to be imparted to young students. Value-based curriculum is something that she has been trying to propagate, focusing on inclusion for children with special needs and the socially disadvantaged. She wants each child to grow into a caring, sensitive, responsible citizen of the world. Her commitment to life skills and leadership programs stems from her conviction that it is only by investing in the young can we secure the future. Gauri. I'm so glad you said that at this forum.
As you can see, I'm actually going to whiz through my PPT because I don't think I need to show it all. But I would just like you all to have a look at what is put out for capacity building of teachers is concerned. There are eminent speakers who will enlighten on that. But I would really like to focus on what is the paradigm shift that teachers have to have in their attitude, which would come through the training. If they are going to prepare our students for a very unknown world that is facing us, then it will be I'm just going through these because I really don't have time to go through the entire thing. Here are some of the features that you need to look at. You know, how I look at the world is that you have this huge lake and there's this man who goes and plants a tiny lily and people laugh at him and say that, you know, it's going to take donkey's years to fill up the lake. But 20 days later when the entire village goes to see, they see that 50% of the lake is already covered. Look at the speed at which it has moved, and that is the speed at which life is moving at the moment. So if you look at the analogy, what are we preparing our kids for? Is a textbook that important? Or are the qualities that you need to face an ever-changing world with unknown challenges? Is that what we need to look at when we talk to our kids? So you have to inspire in them a desire to learn. Not just rote learn, but to have a voice about what they are learning, to be able to discuss, to have belief in values and in themselves, have confidence. And if you give them all this, they will tomorrow make informed decisions. And to get children to be like this, we have to depend on the teachers. And are we training our teachers to do that? Just as Professor Dinesh said just now, large percentage of teachers are completely unaware of what they need to do. What do they need to do to invest in the young people for a better future? And it's the teacher training component that's going to make a critical difference. Here, if you look at this, teachers of yesterday, I mean even today, there's the teachers of yesterday who are practicing today. Imparting knowledge, you have to have, you're the boss in the classroom. Then the classroom is perceived as a safe environment. A lot of what you teach is theory, and there's passive participation from your students who then rote learn and give it back to you. But it's not going to help anymore, because teachers of tomorrow have to be facilitators who share knowledge, who have active participation with their students. The entire process of learning is learning together. It has to be experiment, experience, hands-on oriented. So the teacher turns into a guide and mentor. And the teacher has to be a lifelong learner. It's not that I've done my B.Ed and that's finished, because education is dynamic. Anything that's dynamic is constantly changing. And as a teacher, you have to be aware of that, and never was this more critical than it is today. In fact, the words that we need for teachers today are, what would be the vision when you take them into a B.Ed course? You know, we always, even in the classroom, what do? We take a textbook and we go and teach it. But you ask the teacher, what is the outcome that you expect from that lesson? They are foxed. Nobody is focusing on the outcome. It's just like, what's the input we are putting? Now, in a lesson, you have 5 attributes that you are teaching. But are you going to expect all 5 to pop out absolutely perfect? Or are you going to focus on 1 or 2? You know, the teacher has to be clear in that. So therefore, when you go in for teacher training, what is it that you're doing in the classroom? I mean, how are you going to define that teaching? I mean, what kind of students do you expect will move out of the portals of your class or the institution later? That's the outcome that you need to be focused on. So the teacher must understand he or she is there to nurture, to motivate, to facilitate, and to mentor. That's the primary duty. And what is the outcome you expect from the students? You would want them to be empathetic, you would want them to be engaged, you would want them to excel. And these two are very rarely brought together. I have learnt it only through experience. I never learnt it in the classroom when I was going through my B.Ed training. I remember one of my compulsory papers was to embroider a handkerchief. Until today, I am trying to fathom how it helped me to be a good teacher. So the teachers tomorrow are preparing students for the unknown. So teacher training has to, I think, with excellent institutions like NCERT, need to focus on what are the attributes that our students need for tomorrow, and how can these be included into the teacher training so that the teachers are empowered. You know, as the principal of a school, I eventually gave up and preferred to take fresh recruits from B.Ed colleges so that I could train them all over again. To be able to look at children as people to be nurtured. And so, as I'm reaching my 1 minute, anyway, I wanted to also say that, you know, I also would like to support what Lakshmi mentioned, that just having fabulous infrastructure does not necessarily make a wonderful school. And I think many investors have discovered that to their chagrin. The teachers make the school. You know, we spend a lot of time talking about child-centric classroom. If India has to take its place on the world map tomorrow, it will be in the hands of the teachers whom we are able to train. Because it is through them that you are going to reach the young people. And I'd like to leave with a thought that I picked up from Khalil Gibran. He says, education is a journey, and the teacher is the guide who holds the child and takes the child up to the door, and there you leave the child. Thereafter, it's a journey he makes on his own. But how successful he is in that journey depends on how you have led the child there. And in tomorrow's world, if you don't have the stomach for taking risks, if you don't have the stomach for innovation, if you don't have the stomach for creativity, you will never be up there in the stars. So my earnest request to everybody is, please advocate for teacher training in a new manner as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. A couple of things I'd just like to say over here. Developed and need to think for herself differently so she can, in a constructivist way, help the teachers to grow. This is for all of us here to remember. The next speaker, Monica Nehan. Monica is the principal of the DAV Public School at Khedakhurd. She tells me there are 45 DAV schools in the NCR. She's a teacher, trainer, and principal by profession, an environmentalist at heart, and a lifelong learner. She has implemented the e-learning system in the school without major financial inputs, and the school recently received the ISA award by the British Council. She is also a teacher trainer ideator and content developer for the CBSE International I board, a visiting faculty and resource person for the CBSE, Delhi SCRT, I presume, and the DAV. At the DAV Institute of the In-Service Education and Research, she is involved with training teachers for e-learning tools in education. She has also authored books on science activities and formative assessment for CBSE. May I, before Monica, sorry, I'd just like to say one thing. I was reading this and elsewhere. Teacher training is a term we seem to keep using. Again, this is an issue that I had briefly touched on yesterday. Training. Is it development or is it training? Is it like I take a horse and say do this? Or is it a more rounded understanding and like we want our children to have? So we may like to think about this issue when we are presenting and discussing later also.
Views that I'm going to share about teacher development, I change it to development now, are the ones that I've been practicing with the teachers at DAV and especially with my school now, which is in the rural outskirts of Delhi. And yes, with all the infrastructural, financial constraints that the school was handed over, I took technology as a tool to take it forward, and to some extent, I guess I have been successful. So these are the things that I'm going to share with you. Initially, what we should realize now that the education today is ineffective in the sense that we are giving ready-made content to the students, content which we expect them to literally vomit out in the form of answer sheets when they sit for these exams. And there is no thinking, analysis involved in those questions that we're giving. In fact, some schools I visit and the teachers, when I talk to the students, they say we are given 10 or 15 definitions and a few more questions, and the teacher says this is enough to go through the first term. Now, when I ask the teachers why this is happening, they say there are a lot of constraints. Those constraints, I would like to, use another word, that is diversity. Initially, when the curricula were being designed, what most educators said was that everything that we use should be for all. Like every time, I visit an institute, they say whatever you design has to be from Kashmir to Kanyakumari. But now if we realize the diversity or the constraints are different. When we talk about teachers who are teaching in the classroom, some of them are not trained to be techno-savvy, using a mobile phone. How many of us use mobile phones besides what we think it is meant for, that is taking and receiving calls? But the students do. How many of us can do things with computers that our students can? And these are the kind of constraints. Then some schools, they talk about fast-speed internet access not being there, so we are not using ICT. Then because we were taught this way, so we are not using ICT. Because it was not a part of our B.Ed syllabus, so we are not using ICT. But is that enough? Can we just remain in those areas we've designed for ourselves using these excuses? The answer is no. Because the students whom we are teaching, they are not the students, like us. When we were taught, yes, we respected our teachers and we respected the blackboard. Also because whatever was written there, we could not find it at any other place. So there were a few encyclopedias in the library and the teacher was the major knowledge bank. And these students of today, they are digital natives. The world is theirs. We have to migrate into their world. So how I classify me and many of us sitting here is digital migrants. And we cannot pull them back to our world because it no longer exists. And these are the students who are the 21st century learners, and they call themselves Homo sapiens. And now whatever we have to do, to empower ourselves as teachers. If you look at these points written here, every use of technology, every character, every new thing that we are learning, it has to address all these. That because these Homo sapiens, these digital natives are active processors of information, they're skilled problem solvers. They do not want to listen. For them, BB means something else, and if you say blackboard, that's the boring board. So they need to create their own learning environments. The so-called notes that are given to them are simply not enough. They would Google and give you 10 more varieties of that if you give them one. And that is the reason why they see school as largely irrelevant. They say, why should I come to school if I'm just going to write 10 lines and 20 questions in my notebook? I need to know something more. And that is what we have to prepare our students and our teachers for. Just a slide to show you the difference in thinking between the digital natives and us, the digital migrants. Multitasking is difficult for us. If the sequence of thinking breaks, we are lost. But the digital native, that is, I'm talking about our children, they are not. And this is what is actually happening. We are putting the burden on the students wherever ICT has to be used. Please help me here, and I'll do something for you. I'll write those 10 questions, just make my PowerPoint presentation. And the new WWW now is whatever we want. That's the digital native speaking. Whenever we want it and wherever we want it. Now, why adopt ICT? Why tell the teachers that technology is very important? Yes, firstly, because the students are digital natives. And experiential learning and all those other things in the classroom which we feel are difficult because time management is not there. If you forget dictating notes, if you forget discussions solely based on content, then, and if you use ICT effectively, you have that time for interaction. You have that time to remain connected to the student. I'm going to skip these slides. I just saw that. And some other things that can be used while we are using ICT, the pedagogy of work, it becomes so much easy to involve the students in useful services. Cooperative learning is possible. I have a feeder school with my main school, and there are video conferencing sessions between both the schools. There is a syllabus that we've designed for classes nursery to 5th. And on one side, if there's a puppet show going on, the students on the other side, the other school, they're able to ask questions, they're able to comment on it. And this is students till class 5. We are still experimenting. Yes, we are doing video conferencing with students of other countries also, but that's not syllabus based. This one is, and it is very effective. At times I go to these classes and I ask them, is your VC boring? Should we simply take you for a PT period? And they say, no, we want our VCs. That's what they call the video conferencing sessions. And how ICT can be integrated, just a few things that we're doing in our school. Our teachers have blogs, they have their websites, social networks. Yes, finances are not a constraint because all of them are free. There are free websites that the teachers can use. There are social networks. We have groups on Facebook also. The worksheets are being prepared using open source software. And Khan Academy, this is one site I wanted to share because this is a big help when the teachers want to download some videos. That's the last slide. Okay. Just a small example to tell you how when ICT is used in an effective manner. As a biology teacher, this is what we tell the students. We compare the human digestive system and just to make a few changes and let the student think about it rather than directly tell him the functions of each and every part.
This is the frog's insides that the French gentleman was talking about yesterday, was it?
All right. And that is why I end this by just saying that it is analysis, evaluating and creating, which now is more important. And we as students were more dependent on learning, understanding and applying. But let's remember that the digital natives belong to a different world and we are there. And so we have to change, not these students.
Thank you. Thank you, Monica. Very nice presentation. Shalini Nambiar, no? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Director of the Excelsior American School, Gurgaon. She's a revolutionary in education, believes in going to the grassroots. Mindsets need to be changed. That's the revolution. Yes. Started the Heritage School in Gurgaon, and she started her career before that with Goenka School as a teacher, and then became the activities coordinator there. Shalini.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Since I started my career as a teacher, the worst part about being one of the last speakers is most of them have said what you wanted to say, and every time somebody is speaking, you say, oh shit, I was supposed to say that. So anyway, it's very interesting, and I'm privileged to be in such an elite gathering. Since I've come up as a teacher, my perspective of the entire capacity building goes to the grassroots. I think what we really need to question ourselves is, how do we choose a profession in our country? Nobody, as Sir said just now, that nobody wants to be a teacher. Generally, when we interview 80% of the people, why they chose the profession is because their families decide, or because the in-laws decide, or because the husband feels it's a half-day job, you can come and take care of the children. So the passion for teaching is lacking in our country, which is a fact. When I traveled abroad, I found there's a huge gap between the way the classes are held there and the way the classes are held here. There's a lack of ownership in our country, and this goes to how we choose our profession. Like, just stating from a personal example, I never wanted to be a teacher. I was in the airlines for almost 8 years, flying, traveling. Suddenly, when I had my daughter, and when I started looking for schools in Delhi, and what a trouble it is to find a school in Delhi, going to different schools and being interviewed. And I used to wonder, my child, I have to pay the money, why they're questioning me? But that's the way it is. So that's the time I decided it's better to enter in the profession rather than talking about it from outside. And it did take a lot of guts to leave a high-flying career, and I started my job with a measly salary of 1,500 rupees 14 years ago. So my concept is that when we hire teachers, we need to, it's not moving. Okay. This is the situation in the country today. Either we have the 18th century classrooms, that I'm talking about the 80% schools in our country, or we have the 22nd century classrooms in the more international schools, 20th century teachers, and the 21st century children. This is the problem we face today. So how do we solve that? The most important thing is the quality of the teachers, which we need to focus on. The effectiveness of the education system largely depends on the quality of the teachers, as everybody on the panel has agreed. They are the single most important factor in determining success. You know, when you read the latest ads about the topmost international schools, you find they are all internet savvy, the children get iPad, but the whole concept of education will be a waste if the teacher, which is the most important factor in educating the children, is not paid attention to. The 21st century teaching, the teachers need to focus on entertaining, engaging, and educational. This is extremely important, I feel. Philosophy of the classroom in one generation will be the destiny of society in the next. This is the recent research that by 2020, India will have the largest younger population. Changes in the environment, which are impacting schools. There are rapid technological changes which are coming over. Societal expectations. See, we were a different generation because we were caught between the value system of our parents and the modern society, because we were all widely traveled. But the present generation of the younger parents who I'm talking about are the ones who are very well aware, so they have a huge lot of expectations from the teachers. Right perspective to education, changing demographics, talent shortage. because most of the time we choose the profession not because I want to be a teacher, but because it's a half-day job. Let's be very honest about it. Therefore, teachers are the single source of differentiation in schools. There's a serious lack of teachers, as we've all agreed, and as ma'am said, NCRT and all, we are making efforts. But I think somewhere, if we go and do a research, most of the new schools which are opening up are opened by people who are not educationists. For them, it's a business model. Then how do you look for talent when the teacher, and another factor which is not having the teachers to join this profession is the very low salary. It is a fact that all over the world it's the most stressful job, and it's the lowest paid, and in our country it's, I think, really bad, if I may say so. The other day, I want to share this incident. We do a lot of charity. We have adopted around 100 schools in India. And there's a school near Kadrabad, so there were 2 teachers who had come to visit our American school because we have an exchange program where we want to encourage them. And I was shocked when I asked them, what are you getting? They said 3,000 rupees. And they say, we do not have children. Our salary depends by the number of children who come to our school. So they go to each home and request the parents that come and send the children. And let's not close our eyes. This is the scenario, I think, I would say in 70% of our country. Opportunities need to be created, continuous learning to be fostered, handling non-performers, performers, high performers. The teachers do not have a sense of satisfaction because if they do well, there is no, it's like a work of a politician. You do one mistake, you're caught. You do a good job, everybody says that is expected of you. Teachers are the single source of differentiation. I'm sorry, I said that. I've just put a little what should be the curriculum of the future, because the main focus has to be on the life skills. If I was to ask you, all of you in this room present, that if you think of one person who has been successful in life and to list down the qualities which you feel have made them successful, I'm sure all of you are not going to say because he was a PhD or an MA, you would be talking about hard work, commitment, dedication. These are the qualities. Then how come the teacher's training program does not emphasize on that? I'm a B.Ed, and I tell you, it did not make me a better teacher at all. ICT, how can we teach digital literacy in the 21st century skills if we do not have the skills ourselves? And as she showed that cartoon, it's a fact that most of the teachers are not, the other day I want to share this. I was attending the economics class taken by a teacher, and she was rebuking the children that why are you using Facebook? And she was getting very angry. And I told her, if I was in your place, I'm going to tell them the advantages of Facebook. It's a marketing tool. Lead the child in a positive manner, for which we need to give more encouragement to the teachers. They need a pat, which most of us forget. 1 minute left, I know, ma'am. How do you, this is some of the things I think we can discuss it later. I just want to, this is the teacher's view, how ICT or all this helps them. Another thing which is lacking in our schools, amongst the teachers, we all talk about collaborative learning amongst children. What about collaborative learning amongst teachers? In the timetable, there is no planning for that. I think we need to have that where the same subject teachers sit together and discuss. How it affects the technology on the teacher's effectiveness. They're more planned, more productive, more this thing. I've just listed, I'm sure quite a lot of you are familiar with the qualities of a good teacher. This is, I recently attended an IB workshop in Malaysia, and what I liked about the international curriculum, while teachers training, is the focus is on the child. What is the child expected? Self-esteem of the teacher is very low. So I think we need to work on that. Trust is lacking. We don't trust the children. We don't trust the parents. We don't trust the management. We need structures. Show, don't tell. Well, I would like to, I know ma'am has got the mic. Just give me a minute.
No,
I just want
minute is over.
Yeah, I just want to end with this. The golden rule I use when explaining concepts to students, which I called it, was the KISS, keep it simple. I won't say the last word because I'm a teacher. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Shalini. And now we have Dr. Tarmeet Kaur Ranjit Singh. I hope I pronounced it correctly. Yeah, please, you carry on there. She is the senior lecturer at the School of Educational Studies, University Sains Malaysia. She has a passion for teaching. Area of research is ICT in education. And she's a member of the board of editors of various international journals. She's been involved in training teachers in Malaysia and abroad. Abroad meaning India, I suppose. Lead trainer for UNESCO ICT in Education Resource Distribution Center. Dr. Ranjit Singh, please.
Thank you. Some South Asian countries, Australia even, and a couple more places. Okay, I'd like to just very quickly, let's see, my skill, I've got time now. I like the idea mentioned yesterday. We were talking about student ratio. Everybody was saying that supplying well-trained teachers in class, but you know the ratio must be right. We must have, you know, not 1 to 50 or 1 to 60, but ideally, you know, but my objection altogether, it cannot be done. Definitely not where we are right now. Okay, we've got, considering the number of schools, the number of students, and the number of teachers that we have. So India has, in the last couple of years, witnessed educational revolution. And we're trying to combat educational inequity in India, lack of opportunity for certain strata of students to realize that their potential to develop their creativity. To address this issue in inequity, we need to consider all aspects of educational system. But if we leave 1 or 2 aspects, put it in isolation, it will not happen. Several issues that contribute to this educational inequity have been ignored for years. Now, 2 problems addressed, even yesterday I was hearing the members, the politicians that came, everybody was talking about affordable schooling, appropriate textbooks, how we have got 1,500 new schools coming up, and low-cost books provided, tablets provided for schools. I think we're talking about the low-cost Aakash tablet, highly commendable, but what about the more fundamental problem? Are we actually tackling the part where we talk about teachers, trained teachers? Unless these teachers get effectively trained, unless teachers effectively impart knowledge to students in their classroom, the mission of improving education and all about inequity will never be achieved. We were talking about EFA today, and yesterday the speaker was talking about not EFA, but now we talk about LFA. But if you have not come to education for all, how can we talk about learning for all? And we heard the ideals about personalized learning environment yesterday, but are we there yet? Okay. I logged in what Professor Sinclair said yesterday, education for the underprivileged. And that takes me to what Professor Sugata Mitra has talked about, the Hole in the Wall project. Okay. He said technology should reach the underprivileged first. Here we have been talking about, since I was here yesterday listening, we are talking about the other way around. Children learn to do what they want to learn to do today. Okay? Children learn if they have interest, they learn. Learning will happen. So we teachers need to create that interest in students. Arthur C. Clarke said, well, if a teacher can be replaced by a machine, replace the teacher. Okay? All right, now we come to the slides. Okay, so if we teach today as we taught yesterday, then we rob our children of a better tomorrow. Okay. New knowledge economy, we know that we've got all this ICT challenge, globalized. We all know, we have been talking about since yesterday, preparing the learner. Okay. We talked about ICT literacy, we talked about technology, information literacy, we said 21st century skills, we listed down again and again in every presentation, in every session, we heard about 21st century skills. Even in the preschool session today, we were talking about 21st century skills. Application to real life situation. This is the challenge in education today. Okay, these are the students today. Knowledge economy. If you talk about what's outside the school today, this is outside the school today. So where are we? 2 blocks per every second created. That's how much technology is out there. Okay. Professional learning, students today, our speakers talked about emerging new students. They are digitally literate, etc., etc. And what are they expecting? Learning preferences as such. Are we giving them that? To do that, we teachers have to change. So hence comes about our teacher training. The role of a teacher has changed. Teachers remain central to the learning process, but what are we doing? Are we there yet? Yesterday, I think, somebody talked about, oh no, in today morning's presentation, one of the presentations, the early childhood people said, the role of a teacher is not just that, it's changed. They said also as a mother, as a counselor, as a psychologist. So where, how do we train all these teachers to be there? Focus has to be on students, designing the experience, and so on and so forth, engaging the students. So how do we do this? Pedagogical integration must be consistent with the kind of learners we have. So that's why we need to train our teachers. Just now, I think one of our learned speakers talked about how things have changed. See the input before. The old-style teachers, the new teaching, okay? Where now the learning happens in the process, not in what the teacher says from the textbook anymore. Okay, it's the process that brings about, generates all those skills that we have been talking about. So can technology do this? Can technology assist? Yes, but only if it's under the hands of a capable educator. Again, yesterday in one of the presentations, I was listening, man, I was. In one of the presentations, someone said about, use PowerPoint, you know, it will help the teachers save time. Is that what we are talking about using technology for? Or are we talking about using technology to enhance learning? Okay, so are we integrating technology just because we're going to integrate technology? I say to you, integrating technology is not about simply integrating technology. It has to be more than that. It has to be about where are we? I think perhaps we are still talking about technology. Teachers don't have the skills, students have the skills, hence how do we use that technology? So we're talking about, we are still learning about technology. Are we learning with technology? Then we generate knowledge. Are we learning through technology? Then we generate new knowledge. A good example here, someone mentioned Singapore just now, or was it in the earlier presentation? Singapore is now talking about creating new knowledge. Of course, the argument would be, they're a small lot, we are such a huge number. But teacher training, okay? Full understanding, the theory says, or literature review says, teacher training has to be about getting teachers to understand and complete mastery of ICTs as pedagogical tools. It talks about the need to design, integrating pedagogy and technology. Okay, focus should be ICT in schools as a catalyst to transform the teaching and learning process. Yep. So technology so far, the global report says, yes, nothing much has happened. Something here and something there, but all the policies are all there. Okay, implementation is the issue. Okay, professional development has to happen, not one-off, but continuous professional development. Most teachers will say they get thrown with technology. We've got the expo, beautiful things being there. Some administrators of schools will come and say, this is what happens in Malaysia at least. Buy this, buy that, beautiful. I've got the whiteboard, interactive whiteboard. And what happens is, at the end of the day, if teachers are not trained, Prof. Sinclair was talking about training. Is that what we're talking about? Yes, we are talking about training to an extent. But after which, we cannot be training all your millions and millions of teachers. So following that, there has to be continuous coaching. So how about getting some teachers from the schools, a couple, get them to be master coaches and peer coach. Okay? Abilities of teachers, they need confidence, they need motivation, we have heard that. Now, if we don't give teachers the right training, they cannot think of alternative. Like the device breaks down, there's nothing else that can be done, so lesson cannot go on, all right? Hence, there must be a variety of issues that we need to look at. Introducing technology takes time, so when we train our teachers, we need to consider all those factors. So qualified and unqualified teachers. I'll just skip this. These are the numbers of teachers in Malaysia. We're small, but yet we have not done it well yet. Okay. Yeah, going back to that, this is what we do. Okay, we train teachers. We have got the unqualified teachers in the system. So what we do is we have training programs in school, then on-the-job training, and after a period of 2 years, we absorb them through our diploma in education program. Now, in conclusion, I put here the TPAC model. TPAC model, because we're talking about trained teachers, they must have the technical knowledge, pedagogy, and content knowledge. Integration of that will come about. And continuous professional development, important, not one-off training, to develop
Dr.
all
Ranjit
this.
Singh?
Yes.
Time.
All right. Okay, my last slide, ma'am. All right, and my emphasis is on peer coaching. And as the minister said yesterday, digital illiteracy. So until teachers are not ready to learn, unlearn, and relearn, nothing will happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think the panelists, at least what was given to me, the list of panelists are over. And basically, we have been talking about, I just remind you, issues of what a school is, what a teacher needs to be, and I would like to add what a teacher educator, who is also a teacher, needs to be, what the system needs to be responsive to, and to what extent ICT and in what forms it plays a role. Please remember, and I think it's ironic that Dr. Ranjit Singh only raises this, that the larger number of our people are in the rural, poor areas, remote and not remote, slum and other areas, not having access or having very limited access to very many things and access to some other things. Keeping that in mind and keeping the lacks of teachers needed to be redeveloped, needed to be supported in their growth, please, I open for questions. We will take 5 questions before we start answering the first round. Please keep your questions brief. And identify yourself as well as the person you are aiming it at.
My name is Kunali Sangvi. I was part of a program that we designed in US and it's just been launched over there. It's called Teach Now, and it does all the things that we've been talking about till now. A question that, and I eventually hope that it will one day we'll be able to bring it to India. So the question actually was for you, because you had mentioned in between one of the presentations that there are some, there's a teacher education scheme, or what are the avenues available for somebody to open a program or initiate a program that does teach, does not just professional development for existing teachers, but also trains new teachers to be prepared to handle this kind of challenges that we've been talking about?
I'm Shubhrakant. My question actually, I don't recall, I saw in somebody's slide mentioning about the teaching profession being a least preferred profession, I think Dr. Dinesh. So my question is that we see a lot of people, although it's not organized teaching, but we see a lot of people doing in the unorganized sector the tuitions, and the numbers are very large. So if that is so, and that is preferred by many, because it gives them a lot of income also. So how do you say that teaching is the least preferred in that context?
Your vantage position as being a representative of the government, how do you see these challenges being seen? How do we mass roll out the training of teachers, learning, unlearning, etc.? And further, how do we go ahead to be compliant with RTE and the issues per se over the next 2 years? As such, I think all the panelists are unanimous teacher education, teacher educators are a challenge. How do we, from the government perspective, address this problem, and how can we as educators support you in this mission? Thank you.
The educators level, my question is more around leadership talent, and each panelist has, is an individual who has impacted lives of many. So my question formally, to take forward the mission, and I'm not talking about founders mentoring their family members because they're already close to the mission. Because if a corporate or an investor wants to come into this sector, and if they need a CEO or a CFO, do they have to hire someone from consumer, industrial, or financial sector, or bring an expat? What about succession planning? And anyone over here who's doing formally some succession planning so that they're not poaching the next principal, building their own? So I would really like to learn more about it from the people here.
One more question before we...
What are working for it, and we are saying that the teaching profession is becoming the least preferred job. This is the place where the salaries are very less. So what is the thing going on for that?
Should we now do a round of responses before we go further? Yeah?
Okay. Sabah, right? Sabah was talking about the mentoring. I think, I'm sure most of us as leaders, it's, as an educationist, the first thing we do is that leaders create leaders, not followers. So I think that's the way the mentoring goes on. The challenges which we face, I'm sure everybody will agree. As I said during my presentation, that the challenges is about the 70% schools which are located in the urban or the semi-urban areas, where there is less of mentoring, less of training. In fact, to be very honest, most of the new schools, I was shocked, new schools which are coming up, the infrastructure is given the highest prerogative. Everything else comes, the least is the teachers' training. So I think now there is a new generation of people who are coming up in education, which is excellent, because experiential learning and all these are coming up, and the teacher's budget, training budget, is getting a priority in most of the schools. I'm sure everybody will agree. To hire people? Right. But I think budgetary planning is the main thing, right? So I don't think so now schools are looking for this thing, because as I said, most of the schools, the new schools which are coming up, have a business module. So there is a, yeah?
I think we need to slightly shift our thinking and borrowing some of the best practices of how corporates are running. I think what is distinguishing, also answering your question, is that from a tuition teacher to a school teacher, and also from a corporate systems to school system, is both hinge on very high level of accountability, and teachers are not ready for that. Tuition teacher can quit, close the shop and move on. So she doesn't have to, join a formal system which will demand accountability. Similarly, we look at our teachers who are, most of our systems are either, one of you said that, principals have family members as the next principals, because we believe that it's almost like a, inheritance system. Whereas we are not at all talking about a teacher before becoming a principal, having number of years of experience and plus perhaps a formal education in management systems. Both are absent. I think we need to bring that element.
There were two queries related to the aspect which I mentioned, that teachers is the least preferred profession perhaps. And it has been pointed out that how can we say that this is the least preferred one when we look at the scenario of the tuitions in the professional teaching. So we just cannot compare these two at par, number one. Let us take the example of technology today. Today we are talking of all technology interventions. And there are a whole lot of ventures are there who are entering into this education sector for the, and though it has been rightly pointed out also that if there is learning through technology, then of course it is going to create knowledge. But perhaps it is not happening. And one more thing is very important here, that most of the technologies which are coming in the education sector, it has got a different kind of aim also, objective also, of even commercial objectives are also there. So same is true for the tuition also. So tuition is perhaps a kind of cracking a code for a particular kind of objective or a target. But where we are talking here in school education or in higher education, we are talking of complete development of a child from the perspective of education. So that way it cannot be equated. But as far as the answer is there in your question itself, that when we talk of private tuitions, which is going on in our country, I don't know, perhaps such a kind of scenario is not there abroad, but here in our country it is because of perhaps, but not in this scale. So, but anyway, what I'm saying here is that this scenario is there only for the purpose of a short target, and at the same time the answer is it has got huge amount of monetary benefit involved, which is not there in our complete school education sector as far as the government sector is concerned. In private education sector, of course it is there. So this is the area which we need to address. I don't know how.
Thank you. I just wanted to add to what Sabha asked. Sabha, there is, and CBSE has recognized that, and many of the IIMs, including IIM Ahmedabad, have devised trainings for principals which bring in a large element of the corporate perspective. For example, not just the budget, you have to multitask, you have to learn human HRD skills, you have to learn managerial skills. So this has started, but you remember it's a large country, resources are limited, so therefore you don't get to hear of it. But more and more schools are now hiring leaders or principals who have this kind of a professional expertise. Secondly, about the not being a preferred profession, teaching, I absolutely agree with him. One of the primary things is that teachers do not have a social status. See, if you go somewhere and people ask you what you are doing, if you say you are teaching in a university, people perk up and listen to you. You say you are a school teacher, people lose interest in you immediately. So, and this cannot be, it's a very important motivating factor, the social status. And it is definitely underpaid. And you must realize that, tuitions, not everybody gets tuitions that way. I mean, so it's not that, you've got 100,000 teachers and 100,000 people are going to earn their livings through tuition. So that is not an analogy that I would go by at all.
There are a lot of, I think Azim Premji also has a university that's now come up. So there is a lot of activity in that area, but then, like ma'am said, it's a large country and there's a lot of people.
Like I told you in my presentation also, technology has been helpful throughout. And when I joined as a teacher, I used technology to have a digital footprint in the form of blogs, in the form of social networks. And I found that, the social status, it's all here in the mind. When I wanted to know more about environment, that was the first thing I was interested in. And when I was looking for more, matter on permaculture, I found that through technology, I was connected to people, especially in Brazil and Germany, people who are actually practicing permaculture. And through video conferencing sessions, they were actually speaking to my children. And I did not bother about social status here and there, but yes, I was connected to a much, larger community. And then secondly, yes, what concerns me is the tuition part. How do we assess who's good, who's not good? This challenge is there in near my school also, where most of the parents are illiterate. Many of them, almost 70% of the students who come to my school are first generation learners, and I do come across tutors attending the parent-teacher meetings, And sometimes, you know, they are so untrained that they would tell that child to sit down, and what they are talking at that time is pay attention and stand up, making the sign of sit down.
PM every day, and it's very rigid, but because they're so competitive, so they have to, or they drop out of the system. One. Two, why does tuition happen? That's because I'm sure majority of us here are educators, teachers. We are not doing our job. Hence, I have to send my child out for tuition. Why? Because of this chase for the A. So at the end of the day, it's that grade that matters. Yeah.
If their children are there beyond 10:30, still 30% of parents manage to conceal it and take it to the back alley. So tuitions is not an exclusive preserve of quota. Just a point. It's a big story. Policemen, special policemen have been put in to prevent parents from continuing their tuition classes beyond 10:30. In China also it has started, Hong Kong. South Korea is the most celebrated example. Just following up on what she said.
China is much worse. China is much worse for and younger children. It's right from there on. To choose a better school, there's a lot of corruption or everything. Okay, now let me come back to less international and our own scenario. A few things, if I may be allowed some time now. 7 minutes? Okay. Thank you. There's several issues that I would like to take up. First, let me respond to the questions that were placed here. There are avenues for collaboration. I'm not talking of national or international. All resources available have to be used if we are going to get the figures developed that we want and at the levels that we want. As I said yesterday, I believe the open and distance learning system is the answer at present and to be used effectively and appropriately, not necessarily what is going on in other countries, but appropriately. What the ODL system uses is the resources, the best resources available in the country, pulled in as mentors, as course material, as internship sources, further development sources, and that is the answer. Now, when you were saying how the masses can be achieved, Colonel Shekhar, to my mind, that is the closest way of doing it. However, if we do not get appropriate mentors, as happened in the Northeast with us, we launched it too fast, and as we do many things, we launch too fast, as we have done for vocational training also just now. With the NVEQF, we will not have appropriate training. Again, in the case of vocational education, we need mentors from industry, we need space in industry for practice, and not all industries are helping out, and the variable quality comes into play. So we have to move by developing different strata and see how to develop as much simultaneously as possible. With the internet available, we can use global resources also, provided they don't cost us too much. If people are willing to join the Indian scenario in improving us, we are open to it. But quality and our philosophy matter. Here I would like to remind you of the National Curriculum Framework for Teacher Education 2009 that was placed by the NCTE on its website and everywhere. As Dinesh was saying rightly, 2005 the NCF came out, NCFTE took 4 more years to come out, rather than coming out simultaneously, which it should have, so that at least the 85% of B.Ed colleges that are in the private domain would have changed fast and moved towards what was needed. I hope that even now they will do it, but otherwise we are having to shut them down again. And once NCTE gets its act together, that is what would be happening. But it's unfortunate that we need others to regulate us rather than ourselves. So the issue is really, how much does society want good teachers? What does society understand as a good teacher? I think we're leaving all that out. Because if society says that my teacher is good if she gets me through JEE or gets my children through whatever, whichever competition, then there's a disconnect between what we call learning and education and what that parent is calling learning. And yesterday when I referred to the middle class, that's what I meant. Because what the kind of changes that are happening in India are more towards looking at India as a largely middle class nation coming up. And the poor people are just going to be left poor from what I can see. My job as a caring citizen and as the director of the NCTE and as a faculty of the Open University is to get to those people, see how best I can support them. And I would like people to join us in that. Apart from that, the point raised about what action after the conferences, I would appeal to to Ravi. Where are you? Are you anywhere around? Yeah, Mona Lisa, you may like to sit down when you minute what has gone on and come out with recommendations, and appropriate groups could carry this further again. One word that was not spoken about in terms of what our teachers should do is research, opening their research eye. The teachers that are there can do a lot by just seeing, thinking, and taking things forward in whatever time they have, little bit of time. As far as teachers to be attracted and retained in the profession, is it a profession? If we do not treat it as a profession, then how does the person feel that she is part of something larger? And the support that she needs to get, that is what we have to build. There is a CABE subcommittee looking into this whole issue also of how to retain. And 2 or 3 points that, I mean, the minutes haven't come out, we have not finalized it, but 2 or 3 points that did come up was, for example, when we post teachers in villages and so on, we don't always have accommodation for her there. Particularly, for example, if you have a Dalit teacher or a Muslim teacher, it's not easily available for her, the houses that are already there. How do we take care of that? Do we even bother to take care of that? So this is being highlighted as one thing. The other is to stop insisting on the teacher taking on every kind of job that either the sarpanch wants or the politician wants or somebody else or the election commission wants and so on. And to do teaching and learning. So provide the internet resources, provide the NROER that, for example, NCERT is developing just now for the country, so that all teachers can access these resources freely and use them. So some kind of connect, at least, for that purpose. Also, the salary is pretty good. It is not a low salary, but what is low is what the Shiksha Karmi or the contract teacher is getting, because the numbers have to be filled. So they take just anybody who fits the bill or not and put her there. So, and then they pay whatever each state pays. However much the center says it should be this is what we recommend. The state pays what it's paying. Please remember, it's on the concurrent list. And in the what is worse, what is happening in the private sector is that they claim to pay something else and they're actually paying something else in many schools. So there is this kind of difference. As I said, that school educational tribunal bill, we have demanded that everything be placed outside and placed on their website, exactly how many teachers they have, what they're supposed to pay, it should be on their website, so that a person who wants to challenge it at least can challenge it. So let us see where that goes. Have I answered whatever I was supposed to answer? And one thing I would like to say that counselors, guidance and counseling, of course NCERT has for years been putting out in varied avatars, diploma in counseling, but all our children and our teachers. We need support, we need counseling. And that is what schools should help, that at least one or two teachers go further, develop further in this ability to counsel also. Are teachers capable of changing? This was one of the points that was brought. Now here I'm summarizing as well as trying to say something. I would just like to say that I was at a workshop where people gave me what they had tried to do in other workshops, and it was very clear that teachers want to change, have the capability to change, many of them. But does the leadership provide the kind of space that is needed? Does the community provide that kind of space when changes are brought in? So when you talk about leadership, it means when we talk about any changes, we need to take them also into the circuit for development. There is a center for school leadership that the NUPA is starting now, Gauriji. Okay? And they're looking for a leader for that center for school leadership just now, but we expect it to take off soon. The quality of teacher education programs, like everything else, it is variable, but it is for the NCERT, of course, has the regional institutes of education, and we have the 4-year programs over there for upper school teacher development, the BSc Ed, the BA BEd, as well as a 2-year BEd, and which we are propagating for the whole country to take now. And as NCFTE already has it over there as part of that, we are in the process of revising the syllabus. And why I'm telling you is because the whole country would have some kind of reasonable benchmark to be assessed against when the programs are out. What kind of humans do we want our children to be? Values, again, come into play. It's not just a question of skills. It's a question of values. And I repeat a little of what I said yesterday, that the way we behave in our society is sending messages across to our children louder than anything else. So don't expect the children to be anything different. The term learning outcome, input, I would like to place some caution over here. Input, output, machine. We are not machines. Let us look at more as processes, as she was saying. So there is something that comes in, which is already in us and which is affected by things around us, by the culture, by the educationists, by other things. And rather than an outcome or an output which is actually visible, it would come by and show up in different ways in different situations. Let us think of it like that. I think I've said most of it. Is there something I've left out or anything that the panel needs to add to anything? Yeah. The teacher education scheme is available, the details on and much more of what the MHRD is doing on the TE India site. I think it's TE India. Yeah? So Amarjeet has put that up over there and they have everything on that site. So please look at it. The SSA, RMSA, teacher education, and with the Planning Commission having slashed funds. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, for summing it up so beautifully and giving us such a visionary and a nice conclusion to the entire discussion. I respect the session. I request the session chair and all the speakers to kindly come forward for 1 minute. And I apologize for the inconvenience, yeah, but all the speakers are requested to just come. We have a little token of appreciation for the time you have taken out and made this panel discussion a success in every way. So if you please come. Akanksha, if you please escort them. just escort Professor. All the speakers. Okay, thank you.
Yes, just a moment. Switch off the projector. They are all looking anemic. Please. Please.
Switch off the projector from there.
Shadow.
There.
On your faces. You're looking ghostish. Yeah,
Now?
that's much better.
The idea is that we are generic.
And now we are going to do all the lecture presentations.
I request Professor Sinclair to present the memento to Ms. Lakshmi Kumar, Director, Pradnya Niketan Education Society and Coordinator for Sweden-India Project, Intercultural Training Specialist. Thank you, ma'am. And yes, there is a photo frame. Dr. Dinesh Kumar, Additional Commissioner, Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan. Thank you, sir, for coming and being a part of this event. To Ms. Gauri Ishwaran, CEO of the Global Education and Leadership Foundation. To Ms. Monica Mehan, Principal, DAV Public School, Khera Khurd, New Delhi. A nice photo. To Ms. Shalini Nambiar, Director of Exceller American School, Gurgaon. To Dr. Termit Kaur Ranjit Singh, Senior Lecturer, School of Educational Studies, University Saints, Malaysia. Dr. Kaur made a special initiative in coming and being a part of this session. So it's actually very thoughtful of her. And I request Dr. Dinesh Kumar to please present memento to our respected session chair, Professor Parveen Sinclair, the Director of NCERT. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Ma'am has been part of our inaugural session yesterday, and also she took out time for today's session. So thank you so much for being a part. Thank you. And to all the delegates and speakers, our next session is going to start in another. We'll be taking a very short tea